This is what we have been doing every Friday night. Memories of Catholic. And I miss some of them because I wasn't here, but listening to them, looking at them on our website, by the way, it's a place where you can go regularly. It was amazing. I even opened it over and my parents, and I of course had to translate to them most of the words, but they understood how important this congregation is to the members of the congregation. They understood through the words some of the love, some of the action that people carry here. So again tonight, I'm inviting Tom, Sue, and Anne to come up and talk about their memories. And hopefully you'll mention Rod and Robert.
For those of you who don't know, I am Anne Friedman Shackman. This is my sister, Sue Friedman Millward, and my brother, Tom Friedman. Our brother, Howard Friedman, is out of town, but fear not, you still get to hear from him via an email he sent to Tom. We all grew up attending Temple Israel for the holidays, Sunday school, Hebrew school, bar and bat mitzvahs, confirmations, weddings, and funerals. We grew up with our grandparents, parents, all of our aunts, uncles, and cousins being a part of the Temple Israel family. We were here during the remodeling of the sanctuary in 1967. I had to be married the first time at Bethel because of this. And we were here for the reconstruction of the synagogue after the tornado of 1975. I have been here for the changing of the guard, for 3 head rabbis, Rabbi Sidney Brooks, Rabbi Stephen Barrett, and of course, my favorite, Rabbi Aryeh Azriel. As such, between the 4 of us, he's here too, but he's number 3. We have been part of the many changes and experiences that have gone on here for many years, each in our own personal and different ways. One of my first memories as a child at Temple Israel was the warm welcoming I always received when I walked into the synagogue for Sunday school. Mr. Maury Schwartz, I don't know how many of you remember him, was the religious school director at that time. And every single time he saw me, he would cheerfully come up to me, pinch both of my cheeks and say, "Annie, how are you today? Where did you get such squeezable cheeks?" Now, I loved the attention. The squeezing, not so much. As I would wander down the hall, many of the teachers knew me by name. Marilyn Cohn, Eleanor Whitman, even Rabbi Brooks would stick his head out sometimes and say, "Hello, Ann." When I got a little older and I did not remember what grade I was in, a huge change occurred. Temple was actually overflowing with baby boomers, and there simply was not enough room for all of us to attend religious school on Sundays. So it was decided that half the classes would start coming on Saturdays instead. For me, that meant giving up my Saturday mornings with my dad at his office, where he actually paid me 10 cents an hour to answer the phone. And when I wasn't doing that, I was watching my favorite cartoons like Mighty Mouse or Casper the Friendly Ghost, and what about Sky King and Roy Rogers? I was almost devastated. On top of that, going on Saturday meant that it was now mandatory for all the students to attend Saturday morning services. We, of course, dressed appropriately for synagogue. No pants in those days for the girls, and definitely no jeans. We sat with our class each and every week throughout the entire service. I didn't realize it then, but the major benefit of those Saturday morning requirements was that we did learn every song, prayer, and blessing almost by heart by the time of our bar bat mitzvahs. I truly felt like I was part of the service as I sat there belting out the words with the choir. And my parents were, oh so proud, of course. Each of the three rabbis I mentioned brought about changes to Temple which had some influence on me along the way. When I originally started at Temple, we did not have a cantor at all. So when it was time for my bas mitzvah, as we called it then, Rabbi Brooks was the one who spent time with me preparing. My part of the service at that time merely consisted of reading the Torah and half-Torah portions along with the appropriate prayers. That was all. It was a wonderful experience for me, and the rabbi made me feel so very special every time I went into his study. By the time my eldest daughter was to have her bat mitzvah, Rabbi Barrett was here. He had known my former husband, Barry, from growing up together in St. Louis. So he took a personal interest in Kim, especially since she was about ready to quit and not have a bat mitzvah. Surprise, surprise. She was having a difficult time with Camp Firestone. Can you imagine? By that time, Rabbi Barrett initiated a new program for the B'nai Mitzvahs. He decided that they would lead the service from beginning to end, mostly in Hebrew, chant the Torah and half-Torah portions, the prayers, the blessings, all of which I didn't have to do. I didn't have to chant and I didn't have to say all that. What started out for Kim to be a horrible experience turned into a time of her life that was very special. For a while, I was afraid my daughter would truly turn against Judaism. But Rabbi Barrett guided her through her studies in such a way that it ended up being quite rewarding for her. And then Rabbi Azriel was here for my twin children's B'nai Mitzvah. Again, more changes occurring. New prayer books, longer portions for the mitzvah students, more challenges from the rabbi for all of us to look at. Social justice, study groups for the congregants, outreach programs. My grandmother said things were becoming too Jewish at Temple. Even more Hebrew in the service. Kippahs were being worn if people wanted to, and talit also. That never would have happened in Rabbi Brooks' day. And now a new building. My grandparents were so involved at the Temple on Cass Street. My grandmother, Sarah Krasny, set up the kitchen when the new temple was built. This temple. She helped select the stained glass windows, and my grandfather sat on the board for years and was president of the synagogue. I wonder what they would say now. Lots of changes through the years, but Temple has always been home to me. It is where I've always felt welcome and where I still know a lot of the prayers. Well, I don't think I can beat that one. No, I don't have to keep it answers, but when I was asked to talk, I thought, what am I going to talk about? Because with those experiences that she just described, or what I should have talked about, and she did it for me. So I took these. I want to tell you from a child's point of view how I felt about going to Sunday school. I remember going to Sunday school, that is, until they changed it to Saturday school, and it was every Saturday. And then we started Hebrew school, and I don't remember what day that was. I say Wednesday because I know that's what it is now.
Wednesday.
But I don't remember what day it was then. Except, of course, we didn't have to go for Jewish holidays. We didn't have to go for winter and summer break. But just like other children, I was one of those children I hated going to Sunday school. I'm sorry, but I was a normal kid. And especially I didn't like that we had to go to services every Saturday as a part of our Hebrew school education. But with our parents, that wasn't a choice that we got to make anyway. So I'd get up and I'd put on my dress. You have to understand, I'm a tomboy. I still wear pants every day. Now that I'm so grateful you wear slacks to services. I had to wear a dress. I had to put on my Sunday school shoes, and I had to act like a lady. It's true, I just didn't like it. But I sat through those services year after year, and eventually they became very familiar and comforting.
And I learned the prayers and sang the songs. And by the time I finished my religious education at confirmation, I could repeat the prayers and the songs without a book to guide me. Now, I have to admit that today I don't remember all those prayers and songs, so when I come, I still have to use the book. No, I didn't appreciate my experience back then, but when I look back on it today, it doesn't seem so bad. I met a lot of good people, and there were the teachers like Judy Van, who was my kindergarten or first grade teacher. I always remember her for something that she gave me. I can't tell you, but when I see her today, I still have those good feelings. There was Eleanor Whitman, who taught us to enjoy the stories that go along with so much of our religious training. And then there was Cantor Cutner, and Ann mentioned Marilyn Combs, who, when I was a kid, Marilyn was pretty intimidating, but as I got to know her as an adult, I grew to love her and respect her a lot. They all seemed larger than life, animated and caring. And then there were my classmates, and this is what I think I'm most grateful for. I wasn't a real outgoing kid. It took me a little while to make friends. But the kids that I started with in consecration class were also there in confirmation class. I don't know how many years later. But I think we were 5 to maybe 16 for confirmation. I don't know. They weren't my close friends, and they didn't go to my school, but we all had common memories. And when we see each other occasionally, we are reminded of those innocent years. Some of those people in particular that I remember, I can throw a few names out there, people will identify them. There's Jack Schlossberg, Kay Bernstein, Gary Cattleman, Judy Lincoln Robinson, Elise Stern, Doe Cohn, Danny Milder, Rich Sofer, Randy Turtle, Francis Brody, Sally Fox, Kathy Greenberg, and I could go on. I know I've missed some of them. I didn't think you wanted to hear them all. But they're all part of my past. And when I see them, I always enjoy their company, or I like to catch up. Or when now I see their parents, I like to see the parents as well. And we have a connection. Had I not come, had I not continued to do Sunday school, I'm not sure I'd still have those connections. Over the years since Sunday school, I could bring my children to temple, feel comfortable and familiar, because after all, temple Israel is a part of me.
I get to do double duty. My brother sent me this email that I'm going to read for him. So it just kind of, if you kind of fuzzy out your focus, you can maybe see a little bit of an image of him. Many of the milestones in the Jewish boy's life occurred for me, Howard Friedman, right here at Temple Israel. Consecration, bar mitzvah, confirmation, and my marriage to Sandy were all accompanied by Rabbi Sidney Brooks, raising his hands over our heads in prayer as if to put us in direct contact with God to invoke his blessing. My first memory of temple was in nursery school. I loved the huge sandbox in the playground and playing with the real cool Tonka toys. Little did I know that I would be selling Tonka toys as a teenager at the People's Store in Towns of Loves. I learned a lot at Temple's nursery school. First-hand knowledge in the sandbox can really be useful when you're making a sales pitch to a parent about how durable the Tonka toys are. Of course, later in life, I was in the construction business, and I would spend hours and hours watching full-grown Tonkas buzz around. My brother Tom, that would be me, and I are 11 months apart in age. People call us Irish twins because we were born in the same calendar year. Our parents, Willard and Dan, decided we should have our bar mitzvahs together. Our bar mitzvahs were set for a fall date. Studying through the summer is expected when you have a fall bar mitzvah date. Tom and I wanted to be able to go to Camp Alpaca that summer for 2 months. Believe me when I tell you, our parents wanted us to go too. So we studied hard and had the prayers under control before we met with Rabbi Brooks and the principal of the school, Mr. Schwartz, to discuss our plans to attend Sunday school. learning the Torah and Haftorah portions were coming along much more slowly than the prayers. Tom and I assured them that we would study every day at camp. There was presumably a tutor at camp to help us. Somewhat reluctantly, everyone agreed to allow us to head up to Wisconsin for a summer of camp. Well, as you might imagine, the tutor never really materialized. Fishing, softball, and swimming prevailed over Torah study, and I can still remember the stern look on Rabbi's face the first study session we had with him when we got back. He took out a huge black magic marker and X'd out page after page of Torah and Haftorah. With much shortened portions, we breezed through our bar mitzvahs and presumably made everybody proud. One year in middle school, several of us discovered the furnace room was unlocked and a great place to hang out in order to play hooky from services. The teachers never actually caught us, but they did notice we were missing from the sanctuary. The following year, the furnace room had a lock on it, much to our disappointment. That did not deter a number of boys in class, including myself, from getting into trouble again. The new classrooms over the driveway were quite a novelty. We discovered if you opened a large window in one of these classrooms, you could squeeze your body through enough to pretend you were a paratrooper and jump the one story down and land in, fortunately, some rather soft dirt. This time we got caught, I was suspended from religious school for a couple of weeks and experienced the full wrath of Rabbi Brooks's temper in his study. While all may not have been forgiven, Rabbi Brooks still raised his hands over our heads in blessings for my confirmation and then again for standing to my wedding, and for that I will be forever grateful. So that was my brother, and it's interesting because we shared one thought, both of us, and I didn't look at this until after I wrote mine. But, I have a title on mine. If you remember the movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, it's a spaghetti western. I call this the funny, the sad, and the beautiful, a matzah Midwestern. So let's talk about some of the funnies. Putting my finger in the socket of the outside light. I was by myself, I don't know, in the hallway. A few of the lights were screwed in and lit up. I stuck my pinky in the socket and was thrown across the hall. I was so shocked. And embarrassed. I never told anyone about that. My best advice for young people is don't do it. Riding my black Schwinn bicycle to temple for weekday Hebrew school, holding on to the ugliest plaid cloth briefcase with my Hebrew book in it. Let's see, for people that have been here long enough, do you remember the nickel candy machine in the basement? Where I learned to love Reese's peanut butter cups. Tall and narrow, had a hand crank on it, you'd line up the candy, drop in your nickel and push the lever. I mean, that was cool. And I was in choir, even back then, and these were I call them the god-awful kids choir robes. They were bright blue, and looked like short girls' skirts hanging from our necks. And Cantor Kuttner trying to teach us to sing Sunrise, Sunset. And I love Cantor Kuttner, and we love those kids. And something beautiful and funny, both my children, JJ and Allison, had their bar mitzvah here, and they did great jobs. And they understood the full meaning behind the tradition. I appreciate that. I remember Allie when she walked up the bima and looked out over the congregation. Big smile, really big smile, lit up her face, and I thought, she's got a job. And she did. She was good. Sad, the sad part of this, of course, you have the tornado 75 with beautiful stained glass windows, which were gorgeous, were blown out. These were replacements, and our grandmother was instrumental in getting the original ones. sad day, arguing with Rabbi Brooks in his study. I won't go into why, but I didn't even know he knew what those words were. But he knew them well. And I was a good parent too. I repeated them right back at him. That was a sad day. But let's talk about the beautiful, simple. I brag. 33 years. This Sunday. Did I mention that I was married here 33 years ago this Sunday? So many other memories, too many to mention, but I'm looking forward to adding them in generations more in the new location. So this is what this building is for, and that's what the new one is for.